So last but not least, a really role model for me and especially also for the startup ecosystem. Her name is Nora Heer, and she's the founder and CEO of Loopline Systems, which is kind of a feedback tool. And Nora knows from own experience how leadership is based on regular and effective feedback, motivates teams. She's going to speak about agile leadership, people analytics, and more. And now, Nora, rock the stage. Please welcome Nora.
Hi, I'm Nora, and as Tijen said, I'm the CEO and founder of a software company, Loopline Systems. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my own story, because I think that's very closely related to what we are doing on a daily basis. So in general, I started my own career by working in the strategic corporate department in Holspring, in New York, when I realized that the corporate world really is not what inspires me the most. And that's why I decided to move to Berlin and there joined a Scandinavian software company who rapidly grew in the next 7 years to a size of 940 employees. And in that time, I actually learned that leadership is not the easiest way to do. And I did a coaching apprenticeship, and I learned a lot about how to train leaders to become good leaders. I then moved to Africa for a year, where the company I worked for started an incubator in Africa. And the idea was not only to enable leadership, but also to enable African graduates to become software entrepreneurs. And that was when I really got interested in the area of entrepreneurship, and then moved back to Berlin to join another startup incubator. In this incubator, we helped more than 40 companies to become successful companies. And one key aspect that we saw from the very beginning was that employee feedback and personal development and the area of performance management is actually one key center of success. So when I worked there, we said, okay, for all these companies, we not only need good HR management, but we also need a quite nice system to enable good methodologies to do good employee talks and to do good performance management. So we looked into the market and said, okay, you know, this is nothing we're going to do manually. In our times, there must be a software that we like to use. And we explored the market, and there was actually no software in the market that we would like to use. And therefore, we decided to do our own little projects and created a software internally. And then we basically realized that we are obviously not the only one who have that particular problem. So we got a lot of requests from the outside. Investors came, said, hey, performance management and feedback is a big thing. So we decided to make a company out of it. And that was kind of when we created the software, created a company. And I originally didn't want to become a founder necessarily. I was very convinced about the product, but I was also very happy in my job. So I started to recruit a lot of potential founders who could take the company into the next step, and I denied all the candidates. Before then, my boss actually said, okay, Nora, maybe you just have to do it yourself. So in 2014, I actually became a founder, and I think that was quite a good idea. And in my years that were to come, I actually learned even more about leadership. And one thing that I learned is that I think moving forward, we should not only think in roles, but we should actually look at skills that people bring. And one story that I have is I recruited this guy. He applied for my company, and he actually had studied he was a priest, basically. And he sent me an application for the area of sales and said, you know, you are maybe wondering why someone with my background applies for sales jobs. But I can tell you, if I can sell God, you can sell everything. And I said, okay, well, you know, fair enough. Let's hire that guy. So we did. And I must say, you know, he wasn't really good in sales. He actually was pretty bad in sales. However, we realized after a while that whenever there was a technical issue in some sort, he was perfect. He knew everything about it. He was extremely interested in the area of IT. And there's one big advantage in a startup is that there's always more to do than you have people in the company. Yeah? So we decided to give him a tech role. And in the next 7 years to come, this guy developed into the head of architect of the software internationally. Yeah? And for me, that's kind of one of these stories where you actually learn that, you know, you should look at people, see what they can do best, and then ideally find a role for them and not the opposite way. Yeah? In a startup, that is something that we can usually do, but I think it's something that more and more big companies also start to think about. The other thing, and that's probably not new to you, is that the way of how we manage people changes a lot. And that means we not only switch from hierarchical management into a future way of management, which is more integrated, more coaching, more eye-to-eye communication, but a lot of companies have also realized, you know, that if you want to be fast, if you want to produce continuous results, you need to become agile. You need to have processes that give you a quicker pattern to communicate with your employees and to check on results and be flexible on what comes to the outside. And that involves that you are able to communicate continuously. And I mean that not only from manager to employee, but also from employee to employee. And the other thing, and I think that's where the digital part and the ability of new software come into place, is that with the new form of technology, we are actually we enable continuous communication, but we also enable to gather data that will not only give us an analysis at a certain point of time, but that will actually allow us to gather continuous data points that will enable us to make continuous decisions and analysis. So one of the things that we learned from that and that we developed into a product was that we said, okay, let's change the way of managing people by continuously communicating with them. And we said, why don't you manage people by asking them questions, and that on a continuous level? So we looked at Tinder. Who of you doesn't know Tinder? That's a better way to ask that question, I guess. So we learned from Tinder that making a software in companies very popular is the way to make it very easy to access the software and making it nice to use it on a continuous level. So what we did is we broke down, you know, the old level of long questionnaires, surveys, and so on, and we transformed this into a card set. So what happens is you get an email, you can use WhatsApp, and you just get a link. And when you click on that link, you get one card. One card, one question. In 1 minute, you can answer a question, and you get more and more cards in a set, and you're just able to answer as many questions as you like. And through that, it's actually very easy to communicate with your employees, but also to give others the opportunity to continuously communicate with each other. And the way how you can do that is quite flexible. You can do continuous pulse checks, you can do 360, you can do bottom-up, or you can do post-mortems after projects. you can also give this platform to your employees for them to enable themselves to get feedback on themselves. And one thing that we learned is, the one thing is the software, but the other thing is also the questions and the set of methodology that is behind that. So what you can do is you can use some questions, and you can just use these questions in order to make a net promoter score, to evaluate your onboarding processes, your exit procedures, your presentation, whatever you like. And then what happens is that once you just very easily set that up in your system, everyone who you ask will get one question at a time, and it's very easy for you to answer this. And what happens is that you actually create a lot of data points. So week by week, you will create more and more data points, and then you can evaluate based on these data. So when you log into your dashboard, you will then see your own development over time, or when you do it on a company or team base, you will see the development of the team over time. And then you can do a sentiment analysis, for example, and say, okay, what are the things that you see in certain patterns, what happens after a while. And one of the things that we also learn is that companies have a quite big desire not only to ask the people who work on their computer every day, but there are actually a lot of employees and working in production or wherever who normally are not accessible to a computer. So what you can do is you can connect the software via online, for example, via WhatsApp or through the other mobile applications, and people from everywhere, no matter where they work, can use it. Yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
Yes.
Maybe, thank you for a very good presentation. Maybe you have also experience if you are growing, like from 4 to 900, it's extraordinary. There's some special numbers where the team doesn't work anymore together.
Yes.
If you have special forces, you don't have 30, 40, you have small teams, 4, 3, 5 maybe. How you scale up and how did you manage this? Do you use small teams, or how you can establish this feeling and this engagement and this sportiveness and this openness? Because after 20, 30, 100, we realized it's chaotic, and only the few guys liked it and worked together, but the other ones you leave behind, more or less. Could you comment on this? Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, so I can definitely confirm that this is a big challenge. We even see that in our own company. So everything that is, there are certain stages where you change. In the company where we grew up to 940 people, we had this principle that no office should be larger than 25 people. And the reason for that was that in that size, you will still create a culture of ownership and entrepreneurism. And the way how we did this is that we created a management trainee program that would allow people after some sales results to step into a managing role of a small office. And that meant, that we opened a lot of offices around the world just to stick to that certain culture. Any more questions? Any comments?
So maybe one more. What do you think of diversity in terms of
That's one question.
HR? One more? Oh, sorry. Oh, it was like...
Might be there a difference between male and female leadership?
Yeah.
Because we have in open source Python, gender diversity. At the PyCon Germany, we have maybe 30% female. In the US, around about 50, I think. We have the LGBT and so the things, and a very good code of conduct. But in the German enterprises, I think women are underrepresented. And how would you comment on this? Because I believe these mixed teams are the best, and they must be diverse, and then you have the best results. How do you think on this?
Yes, I guess that's one of our favorite topics, so thank you. No, in general, I think that, of course, there's a lot that we can learn from Scandinavia in that regard. I think in terms of female leadership quota, we can learn a lot, and we are still working on this. I personally think that, and Tijen and myself are actually discussing this quite a lot, but I personally think that it's going to be one of our big challenges to enable, motivate, and systematically promote women in further leadership roles. And I personally do a lot of leadership coaching, also for women, because we realize that a lot of women also need a little bit of encouragement to step into these positions. Yeah, I personally, and you also have a lot to say to that, I know. I personally not necessarily believe in a male or female type of leadership, but I really believe that when we move forward, it's all about the opportunity that is that we believe in authentic leadership. Yeah? And I think one of the chances is that the more authentic you are and the more authentic you create a relationship with your employees, the more successful you will be.
And what do you recognize in terms of this new generation, in terms of leadership and also HR and digital transformation? What are your experiences on it? Like, do we have this kind of very cool and hip and agile generation, or maybe do we have a generation which is a little bit more boring?
Well, I think that what has been very much discussed is the Generation Y. And I can definitely say from my experience that the Generation Y has created a shift in the way of how a lot of people work with their employees. And I can confirm that from my own experience in my own company. And I think that the Generation Y is, in a way, is just a little bit more demanding. Yeah? And I think for me it summarizes a little bit more in a question of, someone told me, they don't necessarily ask what can I do for the company, but what can the company do for me. Yeah? So I think in terms of feedback and management, one thing that we see a lot is the big request of continuous feedback and opportunities to develop yourself in an organization and to really drive your organization forward.
Thanks. More questions or? Okay, otherwise I would be...
Yes?
One? Yes. We need a microphone, please. Microphone. Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to go back again for a moment to women in leadership. Yeah. So I work for a company called Volunteer Vision, and I manage our digital mentoring program for women. And in conversations with other companies, it's become clear that for middle management, there are programs that exist for supporting women in leadership, but it's harder to identify a wider pool of potential talent for newer employees. Would you agree, based on your experience, that that's where one of the major challenges lies?
Yeah, I think it's there are different things to it, to be honest. What I experience in coaching of potential female leaders is that there are actually a lot of potential leaders, female leaders that are out there who don't have the confidence or the willingness to say, I want to step up. Yeah? And what I experience is that a lot of women tend to be a little bit more careful about promoting themselves and to confidently saying, I'm ready for this role. Yeah? So I think part of this recruiting challenge comes from really the fact that we need to enable them a little bit more.
So, thank you, Nora. Thanks for your talk. Big applause for Nora.